Hello and welcome. In this video, we will be discussing the Horizon VAC-100 Collator and going over the operational screen settings on it. First of all, now we are going to power up. So we're going to power the screen up and it'll go through a boot up. As you can see here, take a minute for it to get itself ready to go. And this is the screen that will come up when it is finished doing its boot up cycle. So we've got our count right here. This will be when we've done, as we're doing booklets, this count will go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the clear button for it when you're done your job. This sets a number of sheets. You can hit that and you can hit enter and you have now 150 sheets. Or you can hit that and you can go clear and you hit enter and you're cleared out. So that'll just run continuously. These guys down here are counters related to tab insertion and multiple towers, a tower split and double bin feeding. We'll explain those functions a little bit later and it'll make more sense. Then these numbers will come on and you can use them for counts on those numbers. This here is the speed of the booklets per hour, and you can't change it now, but you can change it when it's running. This is the transport speed, so that's these belts down here where the sheets are coming through the machine, and that will let you have two speed selections there, slow or fast, as to how fast the towers transport the sheets once they're collated. This is a suction control. There's low suction or full suction, and that's on the suction drums on the sheets. If you have small sheets or thin sheets, you may want to go down to low suction. For anything standard sheets 8.5 by 11 or 11/17, you'd normally want it to run up on the full suction. This icon down here controls the shingling. It's how the sheets come out in relation to one another from bin 1 to bin 10 on any given tower. And you can scroll through that and it just makes the sheets staggered more coming into the downstream device. You say, why would you want to use that? Well, sometimes if you've got thick sheets, if you're doing fairly heavy sheets, you want them spread out a bit so it's not such a wad of paper, so to say, going in all at one time. If you've got thin sheets and they're light and they're not very stable, then you might want to come back to here so they all travel together and go in together nicely. This is just an information window. Right now it's saying question mark because we haven't calibrated the tower, so it doesn't know what it's doing for this job. This here is an icon for the blow air on the exit. So you can gray it out. It's not on or it's turned on, and that's this little nozzle right down here. Right here, this little nozzle that blows air to help the sheets float through onto the conveyor of the ST40. This is currently off. It is for a hand Mary unit, which we do not have on this machine, but if you have it on a machine, it would show the hand Mary unit there, and you could turn it on or off if you were inserting by hand. This icon here is related to the feeding of the sheets. When it is grayed out like this, the suction cycle comes on immediately as the suction drum starts to turn. So it starts to suck and it starts to turn immediately at the same time. When it's like this, the suction drum, it starts suction just a little bit before it actually starts to turn. So it picks the sheets up and holds them up against the suction drum before it actually feeds them. Normally this setting here would be for heavier or thicker sheets, where it gives it a little bit more time to separate, for the blow air to separate that second sheet if it's picked up by static stuck to it or anything like that. And this icon right here is shingling between towers. So we've got two towers here. So this icon is the first set and the sheets from the second tower, it shows them spread apart. There's 3 different settings on there. There's the closest together and there's the farthest apart. And again, that's just the timing of how the sheets from the second tower come out related to the sheets from the first tower. Moving on to our second tab up at the top. This is where you select what towers you're going to use. You can use either the first tower or both or only the second tower. So even though this first tower is powered up and you might even have leftover sheets in the bins, it will not feed sheets because it's not turned on for this job. Moving on to the third icon. So your third icon here, this is your calibration screen where you set how the VAC tower monitors each sheet as it's fed. So you've got 3 things going on here. You've got the bins that are being used. You can turn them on or turn them off, or when you do your calibration cycle, it will detect who has sheets and who doesn't on the bins, and it will automatically turn them on or off if they do or don't have sheets. This here is the photo light for monitoring double feeds. This in this arrangement is standard brightness, and this with that is high brightness. And the reason for going to high brightness would be if you had thicker sheets or you had a lot of dark print on your sheets that it needed to shine light pass through stronger, you can turn it on to higher brightness. This eyeball here is how closely or how sensitive the sensor is to change before it will flag an error. So when you do your calibration, which is this button right here, it takes 1 sheet out of every bin and it passes it past a photo light, and that measures the pass through of the photo light to a sensor down below, and it memorizes that. Then when the machine is up and running, it monitors each sheet, and if you get a double feed going in, for example, that light pass through changes dramatically and it flags an error. Well, this setting here is how sensitive it is, how much change it allows before it flags an error. So this guy, he's got his eye almost right shut. He'll let just about anything go by. If you had a foil bar on your sheet that kept flagging a double even though there wasn't, you might want him to shut his eyes down a little bit so that he isn't watching so hard. Then you scroll up. This guy here, now he's got his eyeball wide open. He's really watching carefully. The slightest little change in that sheet's going to flag an error. And then you've got two intermediate settings in the middle, and those are just varying levels of sensitivity. These are our calibration buttons, and this calibrates tower 1, this calibrates tower 2, and this calibrates all together. We usually recommend calibrating tower at a time. You push this button, it'll take 1 sheet out of every bin, put it through into the stacker, and you just want to go through that and make sure that there is only 1 sheet out of every bin. Moving on to our next tab, this is where the fun stuff really begins. This is tab insertion. So you can turn that on and you can tell it how many tabs you want to insert. And this is a counter here where every 50 books it's going to insert a tab or a divider sheet. So it's going to, when you're doing stacking or when you're doing booklet primarily when you're doing stacking, you can insert a sheet every 50 sheets, and that sheet is in the top bin of the tower. If you had a second insert, you could take this to 2 and you could tell it over here you wanted it at every 20, you wanted that one at every 20 sheets. So we're just going to clear those. We're just going to clear those numbers out. This guy down here is very interesting. He takes the system, when you turn him on, he takes the system and turns it into two identical systems, basically splits the whole entire system in half and runs it like two separate identical systems. So we have two towers here, and say you're using 8 pages. So you put 8 pages in tower number 1, and you put the same 8 pages in tower number 2. Now when you do your calibration back in this screen, you want to calibrate both towers. Then you come here and you turn this on. You want to start feeding those 8 sheets, making booklets out of that first tower. When a bin runs out, the system will automatically then switch over and start feeding booklets from the second tower while you reload the first tower. So it's non-stop production in essence. And you can select right here which tower it starts feeding from when you push the start button. This here now is another interesting one. This here makes the top 2 bins into cover bins, basically. Usually when you're doing a booklet, you have a cover that's quite a bit thicker than the pages. So of course the covers run out long before the pages do. So when you turn this guy on, it changes the top 2 bins to cover bins. So you put covers in here and in here. Okay, both bins have covers, and when you do your calibration back in this screen, it will take cover from both bins, so your booklet will have 2 covers on it, but when you push the run button to start running, it will start feeding out of bin 1 or bin 2, whichever one you highlight. It'll start feeding out of there, and then when that bin runs out, it'll simply start feeding covers out of the other bin and keep on making booklets until one of the bins runs out. And this here is small sheet insertion. It's not on this machine, so it's grayed out. We can't activate it. Going on to your last screen. This is a memory screen where you have 1 to 9 memories jobs, and you can save or recall jobs from this memory. And it'll memorize your sheets per hour, booklets per hour that you were running. It'll memorize your speed, your suction, and your overlap. And it'll memorize if you had any settings in here. So this is just a memory screen. So right back to this screen here now. We are ready to start our job, and we have these 2 icons down here. This is the stop icon, and this is the start icon. So thank you for listening. This is the end of our screen explanation for the Horizon Collator, the VAC-100, and we hope it was helpful for you.